Shalom, this is Avraham Shira from Eretz Israel. Welcome to an Erev Shabbat talk. Actually, it's Erev Rosh Hashanah. I'm so used to Shabbat. Well, Rosh Hashanah and Shabbat have a little bit in common. But we are approaching a new year. It's an exciting thing in Judaism. You see the people are up. Their hearts are open. Everybody's blessing everyone to have a new year. It's a different vibe altogether. It's a time of recognition of the transformation of life, the cycles of life, and that we're all woven into this cycle of life, and it's coming back to full swing to a new year. Of course, we're saying goodbye to the old year. The Zohar Kadosh says that the shofar is the middle column, the Amuda Emseita, the middle column. So what is the middle column, and why is the shofar called that, the middle column? And what does that have to do with the great shofar of the redemption? Tekah b'shofar gadol leherutenu. Sound the shofar of our freedom. And so all these concepts kind of wrap together, and we're going to try to take it apart and understand a little better. So of course the shofar is taken from a ram, and that is of course a reminder of the Akedah, the binding of Isaac on the altar, where God saved Isaac and he was replaced by a ram. And so that horn is to remind us of the merit of Yitzhak, the self-sacrifice that he had to do God's will. So, but what is this middle column of the shofar? Well, in Kabbalah, the middle column is a connection of the energy that flows from your mind to your heart, to your covenant, your hands and your feet. It's a straight channel that connects the thinking, the feeling, and the tools of action in this world. And when they're aligned, all three of those, your thinking, your intentions, your feelings, your arousal, your desire, and your body, when they all come together in one line, that's called the middle column. Now, the middle column in Kabbalah is also associated with the divine transcendence, where the soul leaves the body through that middle column. And so the shofar is being called that. So is the shofar a ram's horn that we blow tomorrow morning? Or is it this Kabbalistic rendition of the energy that's flowing through our body? Or maybe they're the same. Or maybe they're aspects of each other. Now, a shofar, we blow through it and we sound certain notes. And the idea of the movement of the air through the shofar, of course, is like the verse says, Harim ka shofar kolecha. Lift up your voice like a shofar. In other words, it's not enough just to say the words of the prayer. We need to lift up our voice. We need to access something deeper, something more full of self. Now, there's an interesting thing Rabbi Nachman teaches in Likutei Moharan in several places, that our souls emanate from very specific points in our body. The souls, number one, emanate from the eyes. As I'm looking at you, at my phone, I guess, right? I don't see you, but I assume that you're there. Soul is coming out of my eyes. As I speak, as all of us speak, soul is coming out of our speech. When we move our hands emit soul, as well as our feet. And of course, when we use our sexual organ in the proper way, soul also emits from there. So now, understand, we are emitting different energy levels of soul from the eyes, the mouth, and that's part of this central column, straight down the body. So when we reach alignment, spiritual alignment means that our mind and our heart and our body are all one, intended, focused like a laser power. If our powers are scattered, how powerful are we? If my mind is over here, my heart is over there, and my body's doing something else, How unified can I be? How connected am I to what I'm doing if I'm looking at you and talking to somebody else? Or if I'm thinking about something else while I'm talking? How unified are we? How often? So on Rosh Hashanah, the rabbis bring the verse, when the shofar blows in the city, who will not be afraid? Who will not feel awe when they sound the shofar in the city? Now, of course, in the ancient days, the shofar was a tool that the city would use, the government of the city would use to announce, well, amongst other things, invaders. So that certainly would get people excited and trembling. Now, the idea of trembling, of course, is not just trembling from fear of an enemy, but it's from fear of something greater than us. So now, understand again, our shofar is this connection of the mind, heart, and body, and it's a channel of power that comes from within. Just as when we blow, the air is coming from within our lungs and up through the trachea and out through the mouth. And that process of energy is an emission of soul. See, our soul is not physical, but it rides on the physical. Understand that well. Your eyesight is the ability to collect light and then send out information. When someone looks at you and they have a thought in mind, you can read that thought without them saying a word. If your heart is open and your eyes are clear, you'll know what someone's thinking because their thinking is coming out of their eyes. It just you have to have that attention span and that purity of listening to pick up what's being thought behind a glance, for example. So soul rides on the eyes, it rides on the mouth, and it also flows through the hands and the feet. And anybody who's involved with any type of healing, whether it's remote healing or with the hands or with prayer, understands these ideas very well. Okay, so our shofar now is an alignment of these powers of our soul, and the alignment creates a focus of energy, and the energy is an uplifting moment that we express into the world. Now, that expression, of course, inspires others. And this is why we go to the Beit Knesset, and this is why we pray together, because we know that each of us has a power, and each person's power joins with the other powers. And that creates a concentrated mass of power. And if you can imagine a football stadium of people screaming about a football, imagine if they're all screaming to God. The difference in the power. They're not screaming about a goal. They're screaming about the revelation of the Creator. When that happens, how much more power is being emitted into the world? Now we're told that when the Messiah comes, a great shofar will be sounded throughout the world. Now that's a pretty big horn, for everybody to hear that horn. But is it really a physical horn? Is it really a physical sound that you pick up in the city? It could be. But we have an example of this in Judaism, because everything that happens now, today, on a global level, happened on a micro level in the exile and redemption from Egypt. So we see when the Jews met at Mount Sinai, and God gave the Torah, and Moses came down, and the fire and the lightning and the thunder were all happening on top of the mountain. We're told that there was a great blast of a shofar. They getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Now that means not just bigger in volume. It means in its penetration of reality, from the physical to the spiritual. It's not just the sound, but it's the ability of the sound to enter into all molecules of creation. So that happened when God came down on the mountain and gave the Torah over to the Jewish people. The messianic promise is it's going to happen to the entire world. But how is it going to happen? That shofar is going to blow outside on one mountain, down in northwestern Saudi Arabia, where they think that the original Har Sinai was? Or is it going to happen in the root of creation, where Messiah's soul is rooted, and it's going to flow out to all the other souls from within? Think about what makes more sense to you. That you will hear the shofar within. Just like Moses heard the voice of God from within, you could be standing next to him and not know that he's hearing God talk to him, because it's an inner voice. But when that inner voice is released, as Takab b'shofar gadol, when the great sounding of the shofar blasts into the world, it's going to come out through each and every person. And if you have a vessel, you're going to receive it, you're going to hear it, you're going to understand it, and it's going to transform you and align you. And if you don't, and if you're a non-believer, if you're an anti-religious person, which is even a worse case, of course, then that light will hit your soul, and it might cause a lot of damage. And we see that, you only have to go down to the mental health hospital to people who tried to access too much spiritual power too fast, and now their minds are in pieces. Because that's what the great light does. If you can't hold the light, it will break the vessel. And the vessel, of course, is our mind. So we're all waiting for this great day, and we're all waiting to hear that inner shofar. And tomorrow morning in the synagogue, you will hear a shofar. But it's still up to us to understand the inner blast of the shofar, the inner awe that's generated by that call. And that call is a call to the beginning. That call is a call to Mount Sinai. That call is for all humanity to hear and to know that there really is only one God. And that's all we have to listen to and answer to. The Zohar compares the heart of a person to a city. And so, Im takash b'shofar ba'ir mi lo yecherad. If the shofar is sounded in the city, who will not feel awe? Who will not tremble? Well, the city is your heart. And so, it's like, you have the city is right here in the middle of all the action of who you are, and all the parts of your body are like the little villages. You have the village that supplies you with wheat, and the village that brings in the wine, and another one that brings in the olive oil. Well, that's the way we're built. And so the cities is the place where the shofar is going to be sounded, and yet it's going to be heard throughout your body. And if you have that experience now, you will have the experience that Rabbi Nachman had once when he was crossing a field on Rosh Hashanah in the Ukraine 210 or 15 years ago. And he stopped in the middle of the field, and his helper was standing there, and he was wondering, why are we stopping? And the Rebbe whispered, do you hear that sound? He said, what sound? I don't hear any sound. You don't hear the sound? He says, no, Rebbe, I don't hear the sound. He says, you're not listening. The sound of the first shofar is still blowing today. And may we all merit to hear that shofar tomorrow. Even the tiniest whisper of a sound, and that will transform us into straight, true, and pure people, servants of God, ready to receive the true presence of the Creator. And this whole human experiment is going to turn around real fast. God willing, we'll see with our own eyes in our own days. Have a great day tomorrow. Pray with all your heart. You're going before the King. And this is not just the Jews. All creatures go before the King on Rosh Hashanah. So we should all pray. We should all be forgiven. We all should be given our blessings for the year. And then we'll have new material to work with. Shana Tova. Gamar Chatima Tova. It should be a sweet seal on your letter from heaven. It's going to come down, and you're going to hear what you need to hear. As God is with you and forgives us, And we're going forward with this grand project called the human race. All the best. Shana Tova.